Do you think your elderly parent could be talked into a financial scam? I asked this recently in the Grown-Ass community. 43% said they already worry about it. And for 28%, it's already happened in their family. Stories about their parents, about themselves, people who describe themselves as sharp, aware, not the type. And it happened anyway. Because that is exactly who these scammers target. Not only the people who are vulnerable, but also the people who believe they aren't. Which is exactly what today's episode is about. Today's guest, we'll call her Stephanie for privacy purposes, but Stephanie watched her mother, a woman who had been happily married for nearly 70 years, become the target of a calculated scheme that could have absolutely taken everything. Now, real quick, this episode is not legal advice. Nothing you hear today should be taken as legal, financial, or estate planning guidance. We are telling one family story, and it is a story worth hearing. Tell me a little bit about your parents' marriage.
It was a great thing to grow up with, knowing that your parents were into each other and were happy and that there was no drama in their marriage, as far as I know, certainly. But they were definitely very happy right until the end. My father used to talk about how my mother was the love of his life, and my mother was absolutely madly in love with him and would do anything. And so, yeah, they were very, very happily married.
Given how long they were together, was your dad in charge? Did he handle the finances? What was your mom's role?
My father was a provider. My father made the money and my mother spent the money. And so it was very traditional in that sort of, old marriage formula. My father was definitely able to use my mother to do the dirty work because she was much more of sort of the enforcer in the family, and he was he was a very nice guy. You'll never find anyone who has anything bad to say about him, and no matter who he was talking to, he always made you feel like the most important person in the room, which is a wonderful trait, and he did that.
And so when he passed in 2024, I can only imagine your family just wasn't the same.
My dad was sick for several years leading up to it. He had a disease that is similar to ALS, so he was bedridden for the last 2 years of his life. And so it wasn't a big shocker, and he was almost 90. He was in the late 80s. So it's one of these things where it's coming, but you can't really prepare for that. And my mother was in complete denial, and she just kept saying, he's going to be fine, he's going to get better, he's going to walk again, and all the other things. And it was just really sad because he was the only person that she was ever with. She met him when she was 13, and,
wow.
They started dating when she was 16 and got married when she was 19. But he was the only person she ever was with in her life. He was the love of her life and with her for nearly 70 years together. Yeah.
Yeah. And so after he died, what did her life look like?
After he died, I was pretty sure she was not going to live because first of all, you hear a lot about couples where they've been together forever and one of them passes. The other one usually goes pretty quickly. It's just a thing that seems to happen. But my mother was very healthy and didn't have any sort of pressing health issues. And she was devastated. And for the last 2 years, there were a lot of caretakers and a lot of people that she was managing. They had 24-hour caretakers, and she was managing everything in the house and all of the finances and just everything. And when he passed, she was facing 70 years of grief, right? Because it's like she had to process that, and she was absolutely not prepared or able to do that. And so she was just kind of a shadow of a person initially, and then she slowly started to process the grief, but I think it was just too much for her. It was completely overwhelming. So she didn't even deal with it. And that's very difficult and very unhealthy, obviously, but also seemingly easier, right? It seems, well, I'm just not going to deal with it. I'll be fine. But that's kind of like your taxes. It's like, I'm just not going to deal with it. Eventually, you're going to deal with it. And
one way or another.
One way or another. But she was incapable of dealing with that and felt that, she really didn't want to or know how.
Wow. So take me to the day where she meets her new friend.
So my mother was independent, late 80s. still doing everything by herself, living in the house alone after my dad passed. And it was very difficult for her to be there because, like, his medical equipment is there and the Hoyer lift to get him in and out of the bed. Like, all that stuff is there, and he's not. And she was in the supermarket, and she was in the soda aisle, and she's walking along, and she gets to the end of the aisle, and she starts talking to some guy. My mother's a very, very chatty person. And she meets this guy who just starts chatting with her, an attractive older man. And next thing you know, they go over to the Starbucks part of the supermarket and spend 5 hours talking to each other. 5 hours. She said, I met this guy. And I'm like, what? My dad was only gone for a few months. And it's not like I'm like, no, don't cheat on Dad. I really didn't care. I just wanted her to be happy and not annoying me, because my mother's also a handful and can be a difficult person to be around, and very, very, very needy, especially because she never processed any of this trauma. So she was, I would say, pretty low functioning because of the sadness. And so she met this guy at the supermarket, and next thing you know, he's like in her life all the time. I met this guy, and I'm going to die. And like within a few months, weeks, she moves in with him.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? And my sister goes, she's happy. It's good. Let her live there. And I was like, I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about this guy. Like, there's something about this that, like, my spider sense of tingling. Like, I don't really like this. And she's like, you're just being alarmist. She's happy. And she's not bothering us. So she's happy. And I'm like, And so I talked to my brother, and he's like, no, she's fine. She's having a good time. It's about time for her to meet someone else. I'm like, about time? Dad's been gone for about a couple months. And next thing you know, she moves in with this guy. And now, whenever she comes over, he's in tow.
So you're never seeing your mom by herself?
Never. And whenever I call her, she's on the speakerphone, and he's sitting right next to her, and he's listening to all of her calls. And he's involving herself in all of these family events and conversations and plans. And my siblings are like, it's okay. And I'm like, this is not okay.
So what are you thinking at this point? Are you like, he's lonely? Is he controlling? Is he like, what is your spidey sense saying?
It was just odd to me that my mother so readily just put herself in the hands of another husband. Immediately, she had this guy who was now doing her grocery shopping for her and dropping off stuff at my house. Like, oh, your mother wanted you to have these oranges from her front yard. And I'm like, what?
And he's how old, would you say?
He's 10 years younger than her. He's in his late 70s.
Okay.
And he's a real estate agent. He's got a really fancy Mercedes. He's got really nice clothes. He's got a beautiful Rolex. And my mother's like, yeah, this guy can take care of me. So immediately she's like all on board and all in with this guy. And I'm just like, I don't know about this. And I have to think about myself. I have to think, well, is this me going, you're not my father? Like, am I having like that kind of feeling? Like, am I making this about my grief about losing my dad and not wanting my mother to have fun in her life because of whatever things I'm thinking? So I really had to explore that and make sure that I wasn't centering myself in this and making it about me. But there was just something not right. It was just not sitting right with me. And she moves in with this guy, and I notice that she is becoming less and less capable of anything. Whereas before, when she was running the house, she was running around the clock care, she was running all this stuff. Now she's living with this guy. He's driving her everywhere. He's cooking all of her food. He's taking care of all of her stuff. He's driving her to all of her appointments. And I'm like, Mom, what's going on? He's on all the phone calls, and something just doesn't seem right. And then things seem to get really wonky. Now, I was talking to a friend about this. LA is loaded with wealthy older women who are widows. And easy marks, because my mother was lonely and wanted the company of a man to feel safe. That's how she grew up, and it was important to her.
Right.
And all of a sudden, she's hooked up with this guy who is now taking care of everything. And I don't like it. And I'm trying to figure out why I don't like it. And so we want to spend time alone with our mother just to see what's going on. But we have to make sure that he's not sitting next to her when she's on the phone because she's always on the speakerphone next to him. So we can't have private family conversations with us without this guy being involved. And my sister would say, I want to talk to you alone. She's like, oh, well, he's not really paying. It's like, no. And so she'd have to go in her car to make phone calls to us. Wow. So he wasn't listening. At least that's what she said. I wasn't even sure she was telling the truth. And at one point, my mother was sitting with my brother who was trying to figure out what was going on. And he called her, the boyfriend called her and started screaming at her because she wasn't home when he got home.
Okay.
So we had heard him screaming at her.
Oh.
And we're like, this guy screams at our mother? What the hell? And we would make plans to see her. And then the day that we were supposed to see her, she would get sick. And he would call us from her phone and say, oh, your mother's not feeling well. She's going to have to reschedule. Like, can we talk to her? She's resting right now. Well, you call her later. And I'm like, wait, what? And why are you calling me from her phone? And what is going on? And it just kept getting more and more suspect that every time we would try to make plans with her alone, something would happen to her physically. And she was living with him and he was cooking all of her meals. And I was like, you guys, this is crazy. So it was right around my birthday, and I wanted to have a gathering with just my mom and my sister and just girls. And he called me 2 days before the gathering from her phone. So I answered. I'm like, hey, Mom. And he's like, oh, hey, it's person. And your mom can't make it to your party. And I'm like, I said, I don't understand. He goes, yeah, she has norovirus. I'm a medical expert. I'm like, aren't you a real estate agent? And he's like, well, I'm also a medical expert. Except he said neurovirus. That's how much of a medical expert he was.
Oh.
She's got neurovirus.
Neurovirus is a bitch, I tell you.
Very dangerous. And I'm like, you're lying in bed next to her. How come you don't have this neurovirus? He's like, I never get sick. I'm like special.
Because he's a medical expert.
He's a medical expert. And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, she can't make it, but she'll call you when she's awake, but she's resting right now. And I said, okay. And he goes, do me a favor. Don't tell your brother and sister that we talked, okay? And I'm like, what? I'm like, you want me to keep my mother's health issues a secret from my brother and my sister? Yeah, don't tell them that we talked. I appreciate it. Thanks. He hangs up. And I'm like, boop, 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 boop.
Yeah.
I get on the phone with my sister. I'm like, okay, something crazy is happening. And she's like, now what? Because I'm supposed to be the crazy person because I've been ringing this alarm bell. And I tell her what's going on. And she's like, oh, that's kind of weird. And so she calls my mother on my mother's phone. He answers it. And she goes, hey, I want to talk to my mother. I hear she's not feeling well. She's resting. You can't talk to her. She goes, well, I want to talk to her. Well, she's resting. You can't. Well, wake her up. No, I'm not going to do that. You can't talk to her. Hangs up the phone. And my sister's husband is standing right there. And he's like, what? So they get in the car and they drive over. And I live 5 minutes from this person. And so they pick me up on the way, pull up in front of his house, call again. They say, hey, we want to talk to our mother. Oh, she's having these health issues. And so we go, hey, listen, just so we can kind of track all of her health issues and like how you're taking care of her, can we just record this call just so we don't forget any of the details? He's like, yeah, sure. And then my sister goes, so now we're recording it because you can't record a call and you can't use it as evidence if you don't have someone's permission to record it.
Right.
And so now we're recording the call. And my sister goes, I want to see my mother. You can't see your mother. And every time my mother was here, we would turn on location services so I would know where she was. And she'd go back home and location services would be turned off. Like my husband would turn it on so I'd know where she was. And then it would always be off. So this guy was turning it off on her phone. So now we don't even know if she's there. And we're like, we want to see her. You can't see her. She's sleeping. Wake her up. I don't want to wake her up. She's not well. I'll tell you when she's awake. We want to see her. You can't see her. We're calling the cops. Call the cops. And he hangs up. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm living in a Dateline episode. So we call the cops. And a whole hour later, the cops show up. And they go, what's going on? We say, our mother's an elderly woman. She's moved in with this guy, and now he's preventing us from seeing her. We need a wellness check. We're afraid there's something going on. And the cops are like, okay. Because, you know, they try to be as unbiased as possible because they don't know if we're the crazy people.
Right, because she's an adult. I mean, I can understand, like, she's an adult, and now she's got kids who are just, I get that. Okay.
Right. So the cops go upstairs, they come back down, and they say, okay, you can see her. Okay. So we go upstairs. She's sitting on the sofa next to him in a bathrobe. It's like almost 2 p.m. She is beyond out of it. It's as if she had been drugged. She is blotto. And he's sitting there in his apartment next to her, all lovey-dovey. And I said, we want to talk to her. He goes, you can talk to her. I said, we don't want you here. I'm not leaving. And the cops go in the other room. The guy goes in the other room.
And the cops stayed here.
The cops stayed there, watching over. Mm-hmm. And we're like, Mom, we've got to get you out of here. This guy is harming you. This guy is preventing you from seeing us. We've got to get you out of here. What are you talking about? I love him. No, we've got to get you out of here. But I love him. You don't know. You don't understand. I'm like, Mom, you don't know what's going on. You're obviously under some sort of situation right now. We couldn't tell if she was drugged. We couldn't tell what was going on. We've got to get you out of here just for a day or two. Okay, we'll just take you home for a day or two because her house was sitting empty. Mm-hmm. She's like, oh, okay. And so my sister goes in the bedroom to help my mother pack up her clothes. Like, she grabs a suitcase. And I'm like, where's your phone? And she's like, he has it. And so we're like, I go to him and I go, we want her phone. I'm the only one who gets to give her her phone. I said, no, give me the phone. The cops are like, give her the phone. He's like, I want to talk to her. And the cops are like, give her the phone. The cops make him give me the phone. My mother is barely able to walk 5 steps. And before, she was completely active in doing everything. And now she's so frail, she could barely function.
Oh, my God.
We get her out of there. And then it turns out the guy was holding onto my dad's phone.
What?
And in my dad's phone, in my father's phone, he changed it. So if he ever called my mother, it came up as the love of your life and then his name. That's how he listed himself in my father's phone. That's this guy.
Wait, he took your father's phone. Your father's phone is still working.
Yeah. Because she was using his phone and her phone. Literally, look, if you call me, my phone says Jackie McDougall. If this guy called my father's phone, it would have said the love of your life and then this guy's name.
Wow.
He changed his listing in my father's phone.
In your father's phone.
In my father's phone. And probably in my mother's phone too. But definitely in my father's phone. He was literally changing the settings in my father's cell phone.
Oh my God.
So we have to go back and get that. And then he's got stuff in her car. We got to get the stuff out of the car. And all this stuff. And it's like hours of just trying to get her out of there. And he's like, I want to talk to her. I want to talk to her. Because he has brainwashed her. And he has probably drugged her.
Right.
And we get her out of there. And it's hours to get her out of there, to get her packed up. My brother-in-law drives her off in her car because this guy's car had broken. And so he was just using my mother's car. So now my mother had no car. And he had it. Anyway, we get the car out of there. We get her out. We're standing in front of the building now. She's got a suitcase. She's completely disoriented because this guy had been love bombing her. Literally love bombing her and infantilizing her for 8 months she was with him.
Wow.
And the cops go, listen, we didn't want to tell you this while our cameras were on, but this guy has real serial killer energy, and you have to be careful, and you have to get a restraining order. And I'm like, what is going on? So we immediately take her to get a tox screen, and it's basically the kind of drug test that one would take when they're going to work for a company, so they're testing for, like, I guess, I don't know, meth or cocaine or whatever, and nothing comes up. So there's no actual, like, drugs that they check for in a tox screen that come up. but he's probably giving her like sleeping pills, or he's, Sonny von Bulowing her. Who knows what he's doing? We get her home. She's so fragile, she could barely walk 5 steps. And we're like, who are you? What has happened to you? Then we start talking to my mother, and all of the facts start coming out about the last 8 months. And it is mind-blowing. And we find out that, so we knew that he proposed to her. So a couple of hours before my dad died, literally he was nonverbal for about a few days. The couple of hours right before he died, he turned to my mother and said, whatever you do, don't get remarried. Have all the fun you want, be with anyone you want, have a good time, just don't get remarried. And she's like, okay. We find out that for months, this guy has been trying to get her to marry him. He gave her an engagement ring, the most piece of garbage engagement ring you've ever seen in your entire life. Like, if you're gonna hook my mom, it ain't with this thing. But she was so madly in love with him because he had been love bombing her that she's wearing this engagement ring. Wow. And she's like, well, it's a promise ring. We're not married. We're not getting married. And he kept saying, let's go to the beach and exchange vows. And then he took her to his therapist, but he sat in on all the sessions.
So you're finding all of this out.
We're finding all of this out now. Now that my mother's in my house, we're finding out that she went to his therapist, but he sat in on all the sessions. And the therapist said that they should go to the beach and exchange wedding vows. And then we find out that when the cops arrived, he came into the bedroom and started giving her math problems to see if she could solve them. She said, I was asleep, and he came in there and he said, what's 26 plus 26? And she's like, wait, what? So he's trying to make her seem as cognizant as possible. And before the cops get there, she was like completely disconnected. And now we're starting to hear all of these stories. And it's mind-blowing. This guy kept saying he wanted to move into her house with her, and he was going to help her fix up the house, and then they could sell the house. But now's not a good time to sell the house. So after living in his apartment for a year, they should move into her house, and he can help her fix it up. And I'm like, oh my God. He was going to steal the house. Mm-hmm. And then he kept saying things to her like, I've made you the executor of my will. You should do the same thing for me. And she's like, everything that I have is in a trust. If I need any money, I have to get it from my son. And the first part of that is true. Everything is in a trust, but she still has full agency.
Right.
We don't have power of attorney yet because she's still highly functioning, So this guy is slowly trying to get into the house, into her will, into her finances, into her real estate profile, into all of these things by being her boyfriend and love bombing her and taking her out for dinners and cooking all of her meals and bringing her breakfast in bed and all the things. And had we not prepared many years earlier with a family trust, he would have taken everything.
And that trust, that thing her family had set up years earlier, turned out to be everything. Before we go any further, I want to talk about that because that's the whole grown-ass lesson here. If you haven't set up a trust, no shame, but I am going to simplify this for you. Maybe you own a home, maybe you don't. Maybe you have minor children, maybe you're single, maybe you have elderly parents who haven't considered protecting their assets before because, well, it sounds complicated and expensive. And let's be honest, it sounds like something you only do when you're a multimillionaire. But the reality is a trust is just a series of documents that will protect you. Not only your assets, but your health choices, your end-of-life decisions. I know it's hard to think about, but it is absolutely essential. But if you know anything about me by now, you know I want to find a way to make this accessible to all. And that's why I've partnered with Trust and Will. Trust and Will makes it simple to create a legally valid will, trust, or complete estate plan, all from your phone or computer. There's a quiz to help you determine what your needs really are. There's no big fancy lawyer's office and not a huge expense. If you have been putting it off, this is your sign to take the first step. Go to grownasswoman.guide/trust and will to get started. That's grownasswoman.guide/trust, AND, will.
She's telling us all of these things that he did. And with every day that she is away from him, she's becoming stronger again, more mental acuity, and more understanding of things. And slowly we see it's like the spell is being lifted off of her. And every day we're talking to her and we're writing down all of the things that this guy did. And it's super scummy. And it turns out my mother has this Rolex that my dad bought for her many, many years ago. And it was a Rolex that belonged to her favorite celebrity. Her favorite celebrity's husband gave it to her, and it's engraved, and it's like it's got her name on there. And so my mother was like, "Oh my God, I have this person's Rolex!" Ah. So this guy was obsessed with Rolexes, and he said to her, "Why don't we take your watch in and get it appraised and get it all like fixed up? But don't tell your kids." And she's like, "Don't tell my kids." And it turns out he would say, "Don't tell your kids about a bunch of things that we're finding out now." So she gives him her Rolex, and he takes it to this very, very well-known watch shop here where we live. And he puts it in under his name. And so now the Rolex is essentially his because she can't pick it up from the watch shop. He has to pick it up because it's under his name. And she's like, "Oh yeah, he was getting my watch repaired and he said he would take care of that for me because he thinks it's worth a lot of money. If it's worth a lot of money, he said I should give him a finder's fee." I'm like, "A finder's fee?" And she goes, "Yeah, and another thing, I was thinking instead of selling my house, I might give it to one of my grandchildren. And he told me I should give him a commission on that." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, it did seem weird that he was asking for a commission on a real estate deal that had nothing to do with him." I'm like, "What?" So I call the watch shop and I go, "Hey, my mother's boyfriend, who is a scumbag and trying to steal from her, dropped off the watch." He's like, "Yeah, I know who the guy is. I know the thing." I said, "You can't give it to him." And the watch shop guy goes, "I understand completely. When my mom died, my dad remarried. And when my dad died, his second wife tried to steal his Rolex.
Oh my God.
And we had to prove that he paid for it. So do you have the receipt for the Rolex?" I'm like, "No, my dad gave it to her 14 years ago." He said, "Well, I can't give it to you if you can't prove it's yours." And I was like, "Well, then do me a favor and don't give it to him either." And he said, "Yeah, I'll put a note on it. Nobody gets the Rolex."
Now, how is Stephanie's family going to get the Rolex back? What they didn't realize is one move they made was the key.
We went to the court and we tried to get a restraining order because he came to my house. He was banging on the door. He said she needed a transfusion. He was harassing me. He was harassing everyone in my family. He needed to get her back because she was his big investment for the past 8 months. And he's like, "She's sick. I'm the only one who knows how to take care of her. She needs a transfusion. We have to take her to the hospital immediately." This is on my Ring doorbell. So I have all of this. We go to the court and we're like, "We need a restraining order." And we tell them what's going on. And they're like, "No, you can't get a restraining order. We'll give you a court date." And so we're like, "Oh my God." So here's what we didn't realize. When you apply for a restraining order against someone, it goes into a record. And attorneys have access to this record. And attorneys start sending you letters saying, "There's been a restraining order taken out. We can represent you. Don't let this happen, blah, 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 blah." All these kind of predatory lawyers.
Yeah.
So this guy gets a letter from these lawyers saying the restraining order thing, and he thinks we have the restraining order, which we don't. And he's like, "You need to drop that restraining order right now because it's going to destroy my business. It's going to destroy my clientele. My office, I've got 3 offices. I'm selling top realtor in the country, blah, 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 blah." And we're just like, So he thinks we have a restraining order. And we're certainly not going to correct him.
Yeah.
And he's saying, "You've got to do that right now." And I'm thinking, "Oh, okay. And what leverage do you have?" So we knew that he brought her Rolex in to get cleaned and put the ticket under his name. And we knew we couldn't get the Rolex back because his name is on it. So we said, "Okay, give us the ticket for the Rolex and then we'll drop the restraining order." And he was like, "Well, here's my demand. I want you to send your mother to the watch shop alone, where I will present her the watch when it is fixed, and I get to spend 20 minutes alone with her with no one else there. I'm like, no!
This guy is psychotic.
He is psychotic. And he's constantly texting her, I love you, I need you, I want you, I love you, calling her from burner phones. She can't answer her phone. And the crazy thing is, this is why you have to tell your friends what's going on in your life. Because once she started to really kind of come back into her proper mental state, she started calling her friends, telling them what was going on. Every single one of her friends said, oh, I did not trust that guy.
Ugh.
But nobody said a thing to her because she seemed so happy because he was love bombing her that nobody said a thing. Yet the minute she tells them, yeah, we had to have the police extricate me and da-da-da-da-da, and we think that I was being drugged, and it turns out that he was trying to steal this and trying to do that, all of her friends, even her manicurist, she went to go get a manicure, and the manicurist said, oh, where's your boyfriend? Because he would drive her to the manicurist. And she said, oh, we broke up. And the manicurist is like, oh, yeah, that guy's bad news. Like, literally.
Wow.
So we've got to find a safe place to live for her because she can't live in her house. And we're apartment hunting. He sends the cops to my house because he wants to talk to her, and we won't let him talk to her. So he sends the police to my house because he wants to do a wellness check on her.
Wow.
Yeah. And the cops are like, he wants to talk to her. I don't give a fuck what he wants. He doesn't get to talk to her. He's a psychopath. And again, these are two new cops, and they're like, well, he thinks that blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't, the cop's like, can I just talk to her on the phone? I'm like, no. And he goes, can I talk to your mother on the phone, please, just for a minute? I'm like, oh my God. And she's like apartment hunting with my sister. She's eating a turkey sandwich. We get her on the phone. She's like, hello. And we're like, the cops want to talk to you. And she's like, okay. And he's like, hi, this is Officer Mendez, blah, blah, blah. And the cop's like, she's fine. I said, I know she's fine. This guy's a psychopath. And now I start playing the Ring camera footage and the phone recordings. And he's like, oh God, you need a restraining order. I said, yeah, I know. So this is all going on. The cops, the constant texting, the trying anything to spend time alone with my mother to try to get her back. Because she's very easily brainwashed, apparently. She's lonely. She can't face 67 years of grief. So instead, she just moved into some other guy's house to take care of all of her problems. Except he was the biggest problem in the world.
Jeez.
And the guy goes, okay, I talked to the guy. He said he's going to drop off the ticket, but he's also leaving a note for your mother. And he said, when I give her the watch, I have to give her this note. And I'm like, what? Now, my mother was so love-bombed and brainwashed by this guy that even to this day, we're not sure that if she spent some time with him, she wouldn't immediately go back with him. Because these are her options now. Loneliness and grief, or some psychopath who's going to take care of everything. Maybe, kill her and take all her stuff. But hey, at least she doesn't have to worry about her grief. Because grief is terrifying, especially 67 years of a happy marriage gone and processing that. I can almost understand why she would choose this guy over that, despite him trying to steal all of her money and her watch at her house. And now I'm really worried because when they call us and they say the watch is ready, I know the guy's been hanging out at the watch shop. And we have to figure out how to get there when he's not there.
You know this, or you just assuming?
I just know. I'm assuming it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to handle this because he's got this note that he has left for her. And my mother's so fragile that if she sees this note, because this guy's like the love bombing champion of the world, if she sees this note, she could go back to him. And I don't want to steal the note because that's unethical. I can't just take this guy's note. But my other option is to see that she gets the note, which is also a terrible thing. And I don't know what to do because I want to be ethical. I don't want to be I don't want to be a scumbag. I'm trying to help my mother. But she has full agency. However, she's made some pretty bad decisions. And I'm really worried about this. So we go to the watch shop. We go to pick up the watch. And the owner of the watch shop is holding the note. And I see it. It's on this guy's letterhead. And it's this long handwritten note. And I'm like, oh, God, I don't know what's going to happen. This is so terrifying. And the watch shop guy hands her the watch and hands her the repair paperwork for the watch and doesn't hand her the note. I see it in his hand. And he doesn't give it to her. Because I think he understands what's going on. Because I explained to him earlier. And so my mother has the watch and she goes, how much is my watch worth? And the guy's like, I'm not Antiques Roadshow. I just, I just repair watches. But this boyfriend was telling her that the watch is probably worth $1 million.
What?
Yeah, because it is a Rolex with a very beautiful diamond and ruby bracelet. And he was thinking it was a one-of-a-kind Rolex made for this very famous actress, and it's worth $1 trillion zillion. And so the watch shop guy, who I just love so much for obvious reasons, says, oh, what happened is in the 1940s and 50s, people would buy a Rolex, take it out of the bracelet, and then take it to their jeweler and have them build like a bracelet around it. Because this is not a Rolex bracelet. Rolex did not deal in diamonds and rubies.
Right.
This is a celebrity bracelet with a Rolex put in it. So she goes, so it's not worth $1 million? He's like, well, it's worth whatever you want it to be worth, but no, it's not. And he said, I'm not in the business of appraising watches, but I'm telling you, that's what this is. But this guy kept telling my mother, I'm taking your watch, ha ha ha. And she would just laugh because she thought he was kidding. But he really was going to take her watch. And he really was probably going to take her house. And he really was going to try to take all of her money. And if everything hadn't been locked up in an estate, it would have been simple. Simple, simple, simple. Everything would have been gone. And here's one of the crazy stories. After all is said and done, she calls one of her friends. And she's telling her about what happened. And her friend is kind of quiet for a minute. And then the friend goes, actually, this happened to me.
Oh, no.
And she said, what? She said, yeah. When my husband and I broke up, I started seeing this guy. Everything I had was not in a trust. And I thought we were in love, but he took all of my money.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're not thinking that, like, your parent who's married for 67 years, you're like, he'll die. And then, like you said, like, she'll die and she's going to be in the family. She's going to be not out there dating, not moving in with somebody, not like, I wouldn't even imagine my mother-in-law in this situation. You know what I mean?
Yes. It never occurred to me that my mother would like shack up with a new boyfriend 4 months after my dad died.
Like as she's approaching 90.
As she's approaching her late 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
But part of me saw it as, well, she seemed so happy. At first, she seemed so happy. But then she seemed so frail. Like suddenly she was incapable from, yes, she was being held captive. But it was little things like she wasn't remembering dates. She wasn't remembering conversations. She was unable just to walk across the street to take care of things. Like whatever he was doing to her, he basically infantilized her and took away any independence she had. And I think she welcomed that because she was conflating that with being taken care of, almost babied. Like he literally turned her into a baby so he could baby her.
So where's your mom? How is she now? What is the situation?
The situation is she's living somewhere safe. She's in a new place. There's lots of security. It's a really great building and he can't get in unless she invites him in. And after we got the watch, we went back to her new apartment and we were talking. And she said to me, do you think he was lying about this or that? And I said, you know, Mom, when someone lies to me once, I just consider them a liar. And everything they say to me is a lie. And this guy was lying to you all day, every day. And she looked at me and she said, do you think he was lying to me when he said that he loved me? I didn't know what to say because it's just the most heartbreaking moment. And I said, what do you think? And she said, I don't know. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, of course he didn't love you. He loved your money. But I can't say that to her. That would be too devastating. She's had enough loss.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so financially, he never got anything of significance?
At one point, she realized that she left her emeralds in his safe, and we needed to have the cops to go get them and some of her other belongings that she had left there. But she's starting to realize that for the last 8 months that she was living with him, he paid for all of her groceries. He bought all of her meals. He cooked all of her everything. So she actually feels like she came out ahead. In many ways, she feels like she may have actually swindled the swindler.
Unknowingly.
Unknowingly.
Because he was investing in the situation.
That's exactly right.
And he didn't get the payout.
That's right. And apparently he had some sort of real estate deal in another state that was going south and needed some infusion of cash. And I guess at one point my mother had talked to someone about that. I was like, well, maybe I should, get in on this deal because you just need some. And I'm like, oh my God. It's like, it was all so obvious to me. It was all just so obvious that this was going on. And I'm like, Mom, you're in an episode of Dateline.
This guy is waiting for a podcast to be created around him. My God.
I mean, it's so insane.
Because he's not arrested. He didn't do anything technically illegal,
That's the thing. Well, I have a friend who's a therapist, and I told her what was going on. And she said, was he preventing her from talking to you? And I said, yeah. He was controlling her phone. He was deleting her texts from us. She was made to think that her family didn't care about her because she was never getting texts and messages from us, and that's because he was deleting them. And she said, okay, well, that's actually elder abuse, and that's against the law.
Okay.
If someone is keeping you away from your family, knowingly, that is elder abuse. That is against the law. And was he verbally abusive to her? And we said, yeah, he was screaming at her, and my soon-to-be sister-in-law heard the whole thing. Mm-hmm. She said, that's also elder abuse and against the law. So I knew that I had him on elder abuse if I really wanted to drop a dime on that. Mm-hmm. But at this point, we just wanted to get her away and safe and back to where she was, which was healthy and cognizant and able to walk, able to take care of herself. The biggest problem we're dealing with now is, of course, she's completely riddled with sadness because of my dad and because of him. And I feel it's a coin flip. At any moment, she could just go back to him. And there's nothing I could do about that. That was another thing we did. We wrote a long list of everything he did to her and printed it out in a large font. So if she ever started thinking, well, it wasn't that bad, we're like, please read this list again. Please look at all these things. Somebody who loves you doesn't tell you to sell your house to your grandchildren and give them the commission. Someone who loves you doesn't try to take your belongings or force you to marry them or keep you away from your family.
Right. Do you think there were other victims?
Yes, I do, because just looking at my mother and looking at her friends who have also experienced this, nobody wants to talk about it. They're embarrassed. It's sort of like, for lack of a better term, it's sort of like sexual assault. And a lot of women thinking, well, this is my fault. I let this happen. And so they don't report it. And this is the same thing because she kept saying, I'm a smart woman. Why did I fall for this? I'm like, it happens all day, every day, Mom. They wouldn't have 5,000 podcasts and Dateline on TV telling the story over and over again. And her friend that it happened to is a very smart person, and she lost millions. Right. So it happens all the time, and it's shocking how easy it is.
Yeah. And to add to that, the self-gaslighting or the people around her, like the manicurist, the friends who are like, I get this bad vibe, but I'm going to mind my own business.
That's right. I'm going to mind my own business.
So it's not just your mom. And this is what happens when someone gets into this situation of potential danger and the circle around them feels like there's something wrong, but we all want to be polite. Like, no more polite. I mean, you were the most vocal. You were the only vocal, yeah?
Yeah, but I'm like, Molly, you in danger, girl. And nobody's paying attention to me.
Yeah.
And by the way, full disclosure, I never said to her, Mom, I don't trust this guy. I think this guy's a bad guy. Because I had a sinking feeling she would tell me that I was wrong. It would drive a wedge between us and would just push her closer to him. Yeah. So you have to be careful about that.
She would cut you out. Instead of him cutting you out, she would cut you out.
Right, because she saw me as a threat to her happiness.
Right.
And I didn't understand.
Right.
And all of this is rooted in her not wanting to deal with the grief. And if you walk through the grocery store, you walk through Target, you walk down the street, there's a lot of older women, a lot of people who have lost partners, and they're vulnerable. And some guy comes by with a really nice car and a great patter and wants to take care of you. And you think, well, this is an established real estate agent. He knows what he's doing. He's the top seller in our neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. And so you think, I'm going to be safe and I'm going to be with this person now, without even realizing that you've stepped into a minefield.
Yeah, absolutely. So someone's listening right now. What do you want a listener to take from this?
Well, I have a few things that I really want people to pay attention. If you have somebody in your family who has recently lost a long-term partner and is suddenly shacked up with someone new or suddenly entangled with someone new, you really want to take a look at what's going on, because there's a real serious problem here, a potential problem. Not all partners are terrible. There are probably some lovely people, but it's really important that you have your finances in a position, in a trust or in a way where someone cannot just immediately get at them. Now, of course, my mother could have called her lawyer and amended the trust in an hour and then sent the guy whatever he needed, right? I mean, it's not a guarantee, but it was a real helper for us, because this guy could not immediately get at any of my mother's money. It's kind of like a
speed bump.
Exactly. It is a financial speed bump. Exactly. Also, and this is really tricky, and I mean, you just touched on it. Each of us has a friend who's dating someone who's a complete jerk. If you say something about that, you might lose your friendship. Sometimes you just wait for your friends to come to their senses. Every single one of us can at least name 5 of our friends who's dating a complete jerk. Sorry, but it's just the case. And so you want to be honest with your friends, but you also don't want to lose your friends. And so it's tricky. But you maybe need to just, instead of saying, hey, I think this is happening to you, say, I want to tell you what happened to this friend of mine. Or maybe you should really listen to this podcast, because this is going on now. And you'd be so shocked at how easy it is for someone to take advantage of anyone and take everything they have, because it goes on all day, every day. So if you just have a few safeguards in place, put together a trust, put everything you have in a trust. So there are safeguards in place. I'm not saying it's foolproof. It is just a financial speed bump.
Right.
This is only one of the reasons why you should do that. Also, check in on your elderly parents and make sure that they're making better decisions. It's almost like you become the parent, right? It's like, I have a kid, I have a mom, and it's like I have to watch over for both of them. Sandwich generation. But that's pretty much what you have to do now, because there's a lot of smart people out there who know this game. And this guy completely groomed my mother, love bombed her, and had her eating out of the palm of his hand. Right. And if my sister and I had not been so diligent to say, wait a minute, what's going on? We want to talk to her. And then starting to add all the things up, this would have had a completely different ending.
What happened to Stephanie's mom, unfortunately, is not rare. Romance scammers and financial predators specifically target grieving widows and widowers because grief can make someone feel desperate for connection. The thing that protected Stephanie's family was not luck. It wasn't just having a watchful daughter, although that was helpful. It was the trust. So if your elderly parents have a trust, and I hope they do, but now is the time to make sure it's current, not the version they signed 20 or more years ago. Also, check the beneficiaries. Look at the healthcare directives. A healthcare directive written at 50 can look very different from someone's actual wishes at 80 or 90. People change. Priorities change. The people they want making decisions for them change. So make sure the documents reflect who they are now and what they want now. And if you need help, Trust and Will can help streamline the process. And it's legally valid in all 50 states. Visit grownasswoman.guide/trust and will. I know it can be super difficult, but start the conversations with your family today before someone else starts it for you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Jackie McDougall, and this is the Grown Ass Woman's Guide. Until next time, you are a grown ass woman. Act accordingly.